to the Cumbria Business Growth Hub podcast. Me, Joe Sanders. Today on the podcast, we're joined again by Martyn Staveley of Three Peaks Consulting, who's been on the podcast before. It's great to have him back. Martyn's leading on our new Export Consultancy Service, which is all about supporting businesses to trade internationally. Martyn's got 15 years international trade experience in sectors including engineering, consumer products, food and drink, and has spent time designing support services to help UK businesses trade internationally. So it's great to have him on board and leading this program. Can you just start off, Martyn, by sticking with your background and telling us about your career and your experience in international trade?
So my time in international trade, Joe, goes back over 15 years or so now in various different things. So I've worked in businesses in Cumbria, where we were importing products from across Europe. And I worked for a large multinational that was sourcing products internationally as well, and then reselling some of those products and manufacturing ones here in the UK. In more recent times, though, I've worked on an intensive programme of support for Welsh businesses that was run by Welsh Government. And a lot of what we're doing here is based on the experiences I had there. And we were helping Welsh businesses from every sector into different markets, and quite often with a considerable degree of success. So, this is based on that experience working across lots of different geographies, North America, Europe in particular, and different sectors, as you've alluded to before, from food and drink through engineering, aerospace, vehicles of different descriptions that are manufactured in and around Wales, and service companies as well, including software companies.
So how did your experience working on that project for the Welsh Government inform this new service that you're collaborating with us on with Cumbria Business Growth Hub?
So what we're looking to do, there are three different strands of work. So the first piece is around those businesses that are thinking about exporting. And if you've got a product or a service, it's something that I think you should be considering, because I guess you don't know what you don't know. You don't know if there's a demand for what you have that you're selling quite successfully, hopefully in Cumbria and possibly even nationally in the UK, that demand could increase your turnover and sustainability and profitability by selling abroad. There are a number of Welsh businesses that are very successful in the UK, particularly some engineering businesses that work in petrochemicals and in medical, but they still look outside of the UK to keep the business growth that they want and maintain the order book that they expect. So we're going to offer, first of all, for those people that are thinking about it, a bit of an introduction to exporting and I guess a sense check as to whether or not something that you have could be exported, and if so, which sort of markets you could look into. And across all of the three strands, it's a bespoke service. It's not a one size fits all. So it's a conversation to start with, and then an agreed number of hours to help you through the process. For the second strand of work, that's for those people that are already exporting, that they're looking to scale up, they're looking to move into new markets or with new products. So again, it's a similar process, but looking at what can we do to help you? Are the competitors in the market, the technical restrictions, or the regulatory restrictions, all of these things, and then what are the best routes to market? Do you need an agent, distributor? Do you sell directly, and so on? And it'll be different for everybody. So that's why it's this unique service. And the final strand is for those guys that are much more established and they've got a particular problem. So it's more of a problem-solving opportunity. So if they've got a particular issue with an underperforming distributor, say, in a country, or they want to explore some other avenues, or it's a particular bottleneck in terms of what they're trying to do, then we can help with that as well. And this links with the export documentation service that the Chamber run and the collaboration you have with East Lancs Chamber as well.
Right, so it's offering businesses support no matter what stage they're at, if they're just considering exporting or they're already established in another market. How will the consultancy actually work? Are you going to be doing regular meetings? How will it work?
Again, that's going to be agreed on an individual basis. So the way that I see it working is it's going to start with a conversation with myself, so we can understand what the problem is and what the opportunity looks like. And from there, we'll agree a plan of work. And some of that will be in person because I can come and visit people. That's not a problem at all. And then we'll probably look to do things remotely as much as we can from that. Again, it depends where people are and what the demands are that they need from us.
And will it be kind of mainly through sort of coaching with you that they would kind of explore ways of seizing opportunities?
It's going to be a mixture of that. And some of that
Yeah.
might be that it's a written report. It might be a spreadsheet of distributors or agents that they could work to contact. It might be that it's a qualified list of people to contact. It's going to be unique to the needs of each individual business. Previously, if you were working with DBT, it's quite prescriptive. This is the product, this is the service, that's what you get. This is as flexible as people want it to be. We'll react to either way. With the Welsh companies, the first stage was that market research piece, which I guess is going to be the core of it. Can I sell it? Is it acceptable in the market? Is there a demand? Is there competition? What should I price it at? Am I going to make any money if I do sell it into that marketplace?
How do you go about choosing a market to do your research within? How do you narrow it down?
Some of that's cultural, I guess. There are some things that just don't fit in certain places. Some of it might be based on inquiries that businesses had. So they might have found that they've had inquiries from those particular countries. So I guess it's exploring that opportunity, scratching that itch, that well, I've had a lot of inquiries from France for the cheeses that I make, for example. It's working through those. It might just be, looking across a number of different markets to narrow the focus down to one particular one, for example. It might be that you're picking up a lot of hits, through Google Analytics. If you're looking at your website traffic, that there's a lot of interest shown in German cities, for example. So it's trying to find out, where the focus could be. And again, it's all part of that conversation. It might be, again, when I worked on the investment team, we got a lot of inquiries after the summer holiday period and people who visited Cumbria about relocating there. It might be some experience that you've had when you've been traveling around Europe or in the US or elsewhere, and you think, I could sell my thing here.
That's really interesting. So people would come on holiday to Cumbria in the summer, and then you'd receive a call about potentially moving their business there.
Yes, yeah, we always used to get a spike in inquiries in sort of September, October time, historically.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, just kind of that knock-on effect that the visitor economy has is amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Moving on now to kind of discuss other aspects of the service. You're working with your colleague Rose Moretti to deliver the service. What experience does she bring to the offer?
So Rose, I've worked with Rose previously, and while she can work across any sector, in reality, she's a food and drink expert. She's Greek. She comes from one of the Greek islands. Her family have been involved in food and drink wholesale businesses for many generations. So she's got that rich history of working in a food wholesale business. With the Welsh companies, she looked after the food and drink sector predominantly. So again, she was doing market research, and ultimately we would go on trade missions as well into international markets with a delegation of companies. So she really is the food and drink expert in this. She worked for other food and drink companies as well in an international capacity to expand their markets. Now she's back as an independent consultant. So she's looking forward to catching up with some of the Cumbrian businesses that are looking to take their food and drink products out into the world.
There must be a lot of additional considerations with exporting food and drink because of the different regulations and things like that.
There are, and again, it can be quite unique to particular markets. So if you've got dairy products, Canada's not a great place to go because they've got very strict quotas to stop the Americans flooding the market. If you've got pork sausages, from memory, places like South Korea are not brilliant either because there's an additional set of regulations you've got to comply with. If it's a beef sausage, it's different. So there's a lot of nuances in terms of where products can go. And again, it depends on shelf life. If you've got a product that has a long shelf life, it's brilliant. It can go almost anywhere. but there are different rules and regulations, as I say, for different markets, in the same way that we're restricted currently from bringing certain products back into the UK because of the outbreak of avian flu in Europe, for example.
In addition to that, what are the kind of main challenges that a Cumbrian business might face when looking to export?
I think one of the main challenges, if you're new to exporting, but again, the chamber can help with that, is around the paperwork and the compliance with those aspects. So getting export documentation in place. But I think other challenges really are around the shipping from Cumbria. Not as much of a problem as it used to be, but all of the main shipping agents will ship products of any shape or size from even the most remote parts of the county. So there shouldn't really be any barriers. I think the barriers really for a business are partly down to the desire to do it and ultimately the profitability from actually exporting products or services. And it can be software products as well. In this, it doesn't have to be a physical item.
Sure. And what would you say are the main markets that are showing potential for Cumbrian businesses to invest in right now?
Well, we know that there are issues over our relationship with the US as we speak, with tariffs. The US traditionally has always been a very difficult market anyway to penetrate just because of the sheer size of it. It's too big a thing to manage in one go. And we'd always used to advise people to start in one state or one region and work out from there. But now with the imposition of tariffs, which could change at any moment, as we've seen, probably not there. Canada's a different animal completely. They're usually quite receptive to UK-based products. But in the first instance, I'd probably be looking more towards our near neighbours in Europe. And it is easier now that systems are in place to export back into Europe.
Thinking about the subject of US tariffs,
Yeah,
how has that kind of impacted UK businesses looking to export? Has that opened up opportunities elsewhere where higher tariffs have been placed on other countries? What's the kind of overall picture after that? Or are we still kind of waiting for the dust to settle?
I think it's fairer to say we're waiting for the dust to settle completely on this. It will open up other markets of opportunity. That is for sure. And it doesn't discount the US completely because the whole picture could change in a week's time. And it could change again a week after that. So it's one of those things to be aware of, and as a country we have free trade agreements with many other countries that are still quite preferable and good for the UK. And even if we secure a deal with the US, they stick to it, then it will reopen that market for most people. But it's again, it's the cost of shipping your product as well to some of those places. So, Southeast Asia, Australasia, New Zealand, places like that, it could be cost prohibitive to send your product there anyway.
Interesting. Yeah, it's obviously an evolving situation. With this service, that's something you can help businesses navigate as those headwinds.
Yeah. But again, if you've got inquiries or demand from those parts of the world, it's not something you're going to discount straight away, but it just requires a bit more thought and investigation to see if it's still going to be a sustainable path to follow.
Yeah, and I suppose kind of communicating with your customers in America and seeing if you can do some kind of deal to mitigate the rises. Yeah.
And the other things, again, why Europe is probably an easier stepping stone if you're starting your export journey. The time difference isn't as bad. So when you've worked with Canadian companies, which have done, again, quite a lot, your working day doesn't start until 1 or 2 p.m. and it extends further into the evening. If you're dealing with, the Australian market, you're not quite going to work all night, but you're going to have to be prepared to adjust your working hours and your working pattern. And it's another consideration if you're a small business or even a medium-sized business that you're going to have to consider how you staff those hours to service those customers.
Yeah. Interesting. Just a couple more questions as we move towards the end of the episode, Martyn. Just thinking about a case study of a business you've worked with and brought through the process that has really kind of grown due to export.
There's probably a couple of different ones that spring readily to mind. I'll have 3 examples. The first one is a food and drink business, so a brewery. business that we helped to identify routes to market into the Swedish market. So they now have annual orders with the Swedish state operator for alcohol to supply a particular winter brew. I can't remember how many tens of thousands of litres it is per annum, but that's produced in South Wales, bottled in South Wales, and then shipped to Sweden every year for the festive period. We help them identify distributors in Italy and France as well. I'm not sure quite how well that's going currently, but I know that the Swedish order is an annual event for them now. For an engineering company, introduced them to GE Steam Power, a trip to Canada. So they make an engineered product that are used in steam turbines and steam generators. So whilst they described it as a spare parts business, it went from zero to approximately £500,000 in 1 year. And there's another software company in Wales that we helped get a foothold into the Canadian market. So their software product is around a subscription model for vehicle ownership. So they tend to work with manufacturers and then they white label the product. So it's branded as Volvo or Ford or BMW or whatever. So people can lease the car and a comprehensive package, insurance, servicing, and everything else through one portal.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. It must be really satisfying to have worked with those companies.
It is. It's great to see people enjoy the benefits of looking into new markets and then getting the success. And we have to be very open. It's not always going to be an easy process. There's a number of pinch and pain points on the way. We're here to help overcome that. Again, with your colleagues in terms of export documentation and other colleagues in the chamber to help support that journey all the way through.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that it's a holistic service and you've got the documentation there that takes a lot of the legwork out of it. So yeah, we definitely recommend anyone interested in export or currently exporting to get in touch. How can businesses get involved in the program, Martyn?
They can just go onto the Cumbria Growth Hub website. There's a dedicated page there, or they can just drop you guys an email for info@cumbriagrowthhub.co.uk and we'll take it all from there.
All right, fantastic. That sounds like a good place to end. Thanks very much for your time, Martyn, and good luck with the program.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We look forward to working with as many Cumbrian businesses as we possibly can.
Sounds good. See you later.
Thank you.